Hello, I'm the real-life fake wizard. After 3 long years, One Piece Season 2 live action has arrived on Netflix. And if you watch this show, it should make you angry. You should experience some kind of visceral emotion upon watching not only this season, but this live action series. One Piece Season 2 is the clearest example in modern entertainment of how to adapt a beloved property for a new audience without betraying the one that already exists. Nearly every other major adaptation in the last decade has failed to accomplish this. Disney's Star Wars alienated and belittled original fans to chase a unicorn audience that did not exist. Rings of Power rewrote Tolkien for people who had never read Tolkien and insulted the ones who had. Doctor Who under Chibnall abandoned its own identity. The live-action Disney remakes strip the souls out of the originals and sell the husk back at full price. Hollywood's pattern, and to a much larger extent modern-day writers in general, have been consistent in their bastardizations. Take a legacy property, discard what made it valuable to the people who built the fan base, repackage it for a hypothetical unicorn audience that doesn't exist, and lose both. One Piece should make you angry because it does the opposite. It honors the original creations, and if you're not a lore master of the anime, as I'm not a lore master of the One Piece anime or manga, then you also get to experience stories and characters that feel original, hopeful, and moreover, satisfying. This show is built to honor the original anime and manga fans, while simultaneously functioning as a funnel entry point for people who would never sit through 1,000 hours of an anime. Both audiences are served by the same product to the best extent that this team can do it. Is it a perfect one-to-one clone of the anime? No, of course not. But comparing this to the anime is like saying the book did it better than the movie, which is a refreshing thing to say when you're talking about both things being good. One Piece on Netflix should make you angry because it has never been more clear that modern Hollywood writers are no longer capable of telling original compelling stories on their own that include earnest and sincere characters featuring narratives that have only one job: entertain audiences. Today's indie game shoutout is Mark of the Deep. On a myth-shrouded island, you'll play as a rookie pirate and explore haunting biomes, face unforgiving combat, and unravel a deep-sea curse in search of your lost crew, the Angry Mermaids. To learn more about this and hundreds of other indie games, visit our free indie game discovery network, fakeportal.com, or scan the QR code on your screen. Now back to the video. Part of why this series works so well is that, even if only in more of an advisor position, Ichiro Oda, the creator of One Piece, has meaningful creative intervention over the live-action adaptation. The Netflix showrunners allow for him to participate in creative decisions, story changes, and casting is subject to his approval. In the One Piece podcast special, Oda revealed that Netflix narrows down casting choices for characters, and then he gets a final say on who he wants to play the role. Later, saying that he thinks all of the 5 main actors embody their Straw Hat Pirate counterparts perfectly. Here we find an original creator who still has creative power on their creation, even going so far as saying that in Season 2, they deliberately played into the fantasy and wackiness of the season so that Season 3, which is upcoming, and onward can better fit the seriousness of where the story is going to go, especially with Luffy becoming a more formidable fighter. Oda also has a kind of veto authority. In the same podcast, Oda revealed that Netflix producers wanted to make Chopper more animalistic and give him a more realistic design, which would have been terrible. Oda stopped them, citing that this would create an uncanny valley effect for the audience, that Netflix and the audience should see Chopper as more of an adorable plush toy instead. Quote, "Chopper needs to look and sound adorable. I think it's a unique cuteness from Japan. I felt that Chopper needed it more than the typical Hollywood cuteness." And clearly this all worked, as Chopper was performed excellently in the final cut of Season 2. So as I said a moment ago, Oda being involved matters because it means every change the show makes was sanctioned by the person who created the story. Does that make it okay for there to be changes? Well, no, not really, but it's more like George Lucas making changes to Star Wars. And like, I don't hate all of those, but I really hate having Vader say, no, no, in Return of the Jedi. That sucks. That doesn't work at all. What I'm saying is, if anyone is going to change the story, I'd rather have it be the dude who made the story than a boardroom of idiot executives pushing something onto audiences, you know? Because it also means that we're going to get the closest thing to the source material as they can make it, because the creator wants his work to be honored in this adaptation. But if we look at adaptations in general, every adaptation of a beloved property faces the same structural challenge. The existing fanbase knows the story and will compare every frame to the original, while the new audience has no frame of reference and needs the story to work on its own terms. Most modern adaptations solve this by choosing one audience and abandoning the other. Disney's approach with Star Wars, with the MCU, with their live-action remakes, is to target a new audience entirely and dismiss the existing one ever existed. The result is products that no one is satisfied with. One Piece Season 2 is designed to do two things simultaneously. It honors the original anime fans by remaining as faithful to the source material as they can make it, and it functions as an accessible entry point for people who would never engage with the anime format. Anime is not for everyone. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a form of preference. This particular anime is over 1,000 episodes long, and the pacing is notoriously slow. The live-action show takes the same story, the same characters, and the same emotional stakes, and presents them in a format that a broader audience can engage with. Your parents, if they're anything like mine, tapped out of the Pokemon anime in the 90s, right? That was as much anime as they could stomach, so they would not be good candidates to watch the One Piece anime. But my parents were very fond of live-action Season 1, and there's a reasonable chance yours too could sit through this live-action show and enjoy it. That is the conversion the show is designed to achieve. It's meant to be an honorable access point. The most common criticism of Season 2 online is that it's too goofy, it's too cringy, it's too earnest. And this criticism reveals more about the state of Western audiences than it does about this particular show. Goofiness, silliness, these are all major aspects of One Piece. The creator has confirmed this himself. Western media has been so saturated with cynicism and irony and self-aware detachment that audiences have lost the ability to engage with sincerity. Everything is a Marvel quip. Everything is a cutaway gag. Everything is winking at the camera. The social ecosystem has trained people to label anything unguarded as cringe. A character expressing genuine emotion without ironic distance is treated as embarrassing rather than moving. One Piece does not operate in that framework. Luffy is cartoonish. He says, Yahoo! He does a silly dance to comfort a grieving whale. He announces his dream of becoming king of the pirates with the conviction of a child who has not yet learned to be embarrassed about wanting things. And the show plays all of this completely straight. There is no wink or nod, there's no ironic detachment. The show is earnest about its own absurdity, and that earnestness is what makes it work. Iñaki Godoy's performance as Luffy is central to this. Luffy in the anime is, well, debatably, he's barely a person in the conventional sense. He does not react the way normal people react to things. He does dumb things constantly. He's a cartoon character, literally. Godoy plays that cartoon energy in live action without pulling back, without trying to make Luffy cool or grounded. He commits to the goofiness fully, and the result is a character that is endearing rather than embarrassing. The sincerity is the point. If you cannot engage with a character who is genuinely, unironically enthusiastic about life, the problem might not be the show. It might be you. The production design of Season 2 is a significant achievement. The sets, particularly Logtown, are constructed at a scale and detail level that immediately communicates the world as a real, inhabitable place. My reaction while watching is that these locations need to be part of a theme park. Logtown, where Gold Roger was executed, is built with this kind of density and foot traffic that makes it feel like a functioning city. It is concept art brought to life. It looks like it belongs in Epic Universe or serve as the replacement of the lost continent of Universal Islands of Adventure when that goes away. Immersion in One Piece depends on the world feeling vast and varied, right? Each island the crew visits has a distinct identity, culture, and visual language. The production team delivers on this across the full season, from the prehistoric jungle of Little Garden to the snow-covered isolation of Drum Kingdom. The world feels real enough to sustain the absurdity of the characters inhabiting it. Up until this point, I haven't discussed hyper-specific spoilers for each episode. And now I'm going to, and you're going to find that in a lot of ways, again, the live action is attempting their best to honor the source material, but it's not perfect. And if you go back and watch the source material, like the anime, you read the manga, you might say, wow, the anime is better. Wow, the manga is better. But that's like saying the book is better than the movie in the same way the books were better than the Harry Potter movies. Both can be good in their own way. In this case, if you give the anime a 10, right, then the live action is a solid 8 or 8.5. And that is awesome. Episode 1, Logtown. The weakest episode of the season in my mind, for sure, but this is the weakest of a great bunch, so it doesn't really mean that much. The first 30 minutes are excellent, smoothly reintroducing every character and their motivation for anyone who has not watched in 3 years. The set design is the strongest of any episode. Where I find it falters is in the execution platform sequence, the defining moment of the Logtown arc in the anime. In the original, Luffy is pinned by Buggy, who is about to execute him, and in his final words, Luffy calls out to his crew, smiles boldly, and says, "Sorry, I'm dead." The moment is held there as lightning strikes Buggy and the platform. There is a beat, then another. There is no music. We see the bystanders watching and reacting as they think Luffy is dead, and are then surprised when he walks away shrugging off what happened. The scene is entirely important to understanding who Luffy is. In the live action, the scene is there, sure, and on paper they nail it pretty well, but it moves too fast. The anime beats and musical silence that let the audience process what just happened is not there. If you're a casual viewer of the Netflix show, you might not understand how impactful this scene really should be. Luffy's declaration that he's dead lacks the casual finality it has in the anime. He tears up slightly here, which undercuts kind of the point. The whole purpose of this scene is that Luffy faces death without regret, without fear, and with a smile, similar to Gold Roger many years ago, who created the One Piece Gold Rush. It is used to better explain who Luffy is as a character, that he lives with a kind of peace that actually makes him dangerous. How much chaos can a man cause who has no fear? Turns out a lot. These sentiments are then elevated by Marine Captain Smoker later on as he makes a confession that he needs to hunt Luffy down to stop him from becoming the next Gold Roger. That Smoker was there in the crowd for Roger's execution and saw firsthand the chaos that ensued when Roger proclaimed to the world to go find his hidden treasure. Now, this scene is in the live action too, but in the anime, there's a line from Smoker that continues to elevate the stakes here. He says, "It's as if heaven itself is keeping him alive," describing how it feels like there is something otherworldly empowering Luffy's ascent. Again, the live action does most of these scenes right, and without knowing about that heaven itself line, a regular viewer might love the episode as is. If you're an anime fan, however, you can respect that this gets most of it right, but not all of it. Episode 3, Whiskey Peak. This is my favorite episode of the season. This is the Zoro episode, and it demonstrates something that modern television has entirely forgotten. You can communicate a character's internal struggle without dedicating 15 minutes to them explaining their feelings and being a whiny crybaby. The episode begins with Zoro clearly dealing with a vulnerability. He was defeated by Mihawk in Season 1 and has not recovered from it emotionally. The show communicates this through brief, sharp interactions. Luffy notices something is wrong. There's clearly something on Zoro's mind. Zoro says, "Mihawk," just one word here, and Luffy responds with immediate, uncomplicated encouragement. The exchange takes less than a minute, and the audience understands everything. We did not need A 10-minute interruption for Zoro to complain about how he feels vulnerable. They showed us. They didn't need to tell us. Zoro's vulnerability is further explored through a visual device, a ghostly manifestation of Mihawk representing Zoro's own doubts. These scenes are delivered in cold, single-sentence exchanges. There is no "my feelings" spiel. Zoro is a character whose identity is built on stoicism and discipline. The show respects that identity by communicating his internal state without stripping him of his composure. Contrast this with something like Starfleet Academy. In that show, every character's emotional state is verbalized at length in every single episode, extended dialogues where nothing happens except the declaration of feelings. I call it emotional Mad Libs. One Piece handles the same narrative functions of characters grappling with insecurity and then lets them prove their resolution through actions, not just words. And this isn't just Zoro, it's all of them throughout the entire season. But back to this episode, Zoro then fights the entire town of Baroque Works agents alone in a sequence choreographed at the level of a Tarantino action set piece. 20 minutes of sustained combat that is visually inventive, satisfying, serving as the character's answer to his own doubts. Each major crew member gets at least one episode that functions as their showcase. They get at least one showcase moment in the season, reminding the audience why they care about this specific character. Little Garden belongs to Usopp, the self-described coward who is terrified in every fight and yet refuses to stop fighting. The Giants, Dory, and Brogy are immediately likable, and the two-episode structure gives the arc room to develop as a complete story. The absurdity of it all deserves specific discussion because it is the quality most people hating on the show are misreading. An otter wearing pajamas and sunglasses riding a vulture with mounted machine guns is objectively ridiculous. The show knows it's ridiculous, and yet it does not blink. It doesn't wink at the audience. It does not apologize, nor does it need to. It commits to the bit with complete sincerity. The same applies to Igaram's powdered wig in the previous episode. Here's this guy walking around with this goofy-looking powdered wig on, and you can clearly see the actor is having a hard time moving around. You know, similar to Christian Bale's Batman where he can't turn his head. Well, what's with this silly wig? In a final stand fight, he pulls on his bolo and an arsenal of automatic guns pops out of the wig, which he deploys while opera singing during the firefight. These moments work because the show has established that its world operates by its own internal logic, and within that logic, an opera singing spy with a wig full of guns is completely consistent. And here we find the emotional core of the season. Nami falls ill, and the crew searches for a doctor on an island whose kingdom has been gutted by a tyrannical king who's waged war on its medical professionals. Only one doctor remains, a woman called a witch who lives at the top of a treacherous mountain, a journey towards which would introduce the Straw Hats to fan-favorite character Tony Chopper. Chopper is a reindeer who ate a devil fruit that gave him human qualities. He was rejected by his own herd for being different. When he gained human form, humans hunted him as a monster. Every space this character has ever occupied has rejected him, leading to his eventual rescue by Dr. Hiraluk. The relationship between the Doctor and Chopper would soon become that of a father and son, resolving with Chopper dedicating his life to continuing Hiraluk's mission of saving people, both literally and spiritually. Hiraluk's final scene is the most impactful piece of writing in the season, as it's meant to be. Already facing death, he confronts the tyrant king who's destroyed the kingdom and chooses to face his end on his own terms, powerfully proclaiming, "When does a man die? When he's killed? No. It is when he is forgotten, that his son will continue his legacy and that he's lived a wonderful life before perishing in a blaze of tragic glory." This story is filled with symbolism, and I've seen people online say things like, "Why didn't Hiraluk kill Wapol?" Well, that wasn't the point. And think about it from the terms of the people who have been told that these doctors are evil and violent and dangerous. How terrible would it have been to prove Wapple correct in the end? If a doctor killed Wapple, then Wapple becomes a martyr. So no, that wouldn't have worked. And more importantly, this was about defying the corrupt king to his face. It's as if he's saying, you didn't kill me, and you can't. My legacy continues, and your reign will fall because of what happens here today, which I think is just badass. And this is also a very sad story, doing a great job of giving the audience a reason to care about Chopper, other than being a cute reindeer. This kid has experienced a lot of tragedy, and now you're rooting for him to win. You want to see Chopper succeed and find companionship with the Straw Hats, because even though he's lived through all this trauma, he still has childlike, innocent optimism. Chopper is a sincere representation of indomitable hope, a quality that is sorely missing from modern writing in all forms of entertainment. You know, if we look at this particular story, this part of the manga was published in the year 2000. That was 26 years ago. If we compare this show, which is an adaptation of a 26-year-old story, and compare its earnest, sincere characters and what they represent to stories and characters that are being written today, there is no comparison. Starfleet Academy, Monarch, WandaVision, Daredevil Born Again, Acolyte, Ahsoka, every show on Disney+. Do the characters in those shows hold a candle to One Piece? Are the characters even remotely relatable or respectable or sincere? Are the old characters as narcissistic as the new ones? How about the heroes of today? Do you think they're the type of heroes and characters your children should look up to and emulate their belief systems around? I certainly don't think so. This is the kind of situation. This is why there are so many people saying that anime and manga and Eastern storytelling is superior to Western creations. The stories coming out of the East aren't trying to lecture you about an ideology. They're not trying to subvert your expectations or tell you that your way of life is wrong. They are there to do one thing: entertain. Oda himself has said that he wants his legacy to be known as the king of wasting time. Not that you've actually wasted or lost time maliciously, but that entertainment is nothing more and nothing less than entertainment, and they're just stories that are used to pass the time. Western Hollywood, as it currently operates, could not create Chopper. Writers today are black-pilled and spiteful and hateful towards the audiences they're writing for. They don't have the capacity for unironic, unguarded depictions of hope. If you compare the Chopper backstory live action to the anime, obviously the anime is better. Hiraluk's death is impactful in both renditions, but the anime's version is set outside in the snow in front of the castle. The scene is quieter, the music is softer, and they're literally playing Ave Maria. The live-action remake is fine too, and the track played in this scene slaps hard as well, but again, it's like an 8.5, where the anime is a solid 10. Considering how often adaptations and sequels and prequels and remakes and remasters are all done with some kind of nasty prerogative to undermine and deconstruct the original property, an 8.5 or even an 8 to a 10 is a fantastic comparison. One Piece, unlike a lot of shows, is not a mystery box show. Yet, it depends on an overarching mystery. The question of what the One Piece actually is has been running for almost 30 years. The story could collapse under the weight of that unanswered question, but it does not, because the story is not truly about the One Piece. It is about the journey to get there. Each arc is a complete story with a beginning, middle, and end. Each island, each conflict, each character introduction is satisfying in isolation. The audience does not need the mystery resolved immediately to feel that their time was respected. That is structurally rare and increasingly valuable in an entertainment landscape dominated by mystery box narratives that all collapse when the mystery is revealed, and often revealed to be nothing worth the time you invested. Stranger Things is a mystery box show. The entire structure depends on the audience wanting to know what the Upside Down is, who the real villain is, what the end game looks like. And when those answers arrived and, well, they were not satisfying, the entire investment felt like a waste of time. 9 years wasted. One Piece avoids this by making the journey inherently rewarding along the way. Each stop matters. Each arc delivers emotional and narrative payoffs. The destination is secondary to the experience of getting there. You may not recognize this, but this is the central thesis to life. It's not about the treasure or the title or the victory. Like, those are secondary things. What matters most is the journey to achieve those goals, who you are, and what you do while you're on your way. In closing, a lot of people complain to me that I hate everything. I don't. I care. Like, a lot. I care a lot more than many of the people saying that I just hate everything. A lot of you aren't even paying attention enough. I care because I know how good it can be. And after decades of being delivered so much that is so horrible, and not only for us, like, on one hand, it's not good to be consuming these terrible stories, like on a psychological level, but also, all of this stuff is bad for all those properties themselves. Think of every major Western property right now. Most of them are either dead, hanging on by a thread, or digging out of being dead or on a thread. That's awful, and that's an awful place to be. One Piece live action, I think, is how it's done. This is what it looks like when the people making the adaptation care about the story that they are telling and respect the audience they are telling it to. I mean, come on, look at this, man. You've got Emily Rudd, the actress for Nami, working with costuming to make sure the costumes are right and wanted to be, quote, as correct as possible. Every other studio currently butchering legacy properties should be required to study this show before they are allowed to touch another franchise. Until next time, my friends, create, innovate, inspire others to do so as well, and for the love of God, cancel Disney Plus.